Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin. We are on episode 110, and it is Christmas afternoon.
Yes.
Did you have a
Merry
good Christmas?
It's been a day, that's for sure. So my wife and I both are in a field where we're on call,
Mm-hmm.
and technically we're both on call today. So last night when we were going to bed, she got the call that she had to be at work this morning. So we've been playing the waiting game all day for her to not be at work.
Yeah.
And she got home, I don't know, about 4 o'clock this afternoon. So it's Sutton's first Christmas, so all the grandparents are here, and we just start letting the baby open her presents, which for a 10-month-old baby, she is a wild thing. Like, she just tearing presents open. It was pretty cool. Because usually the parents, like, from what I understand, the parents have to do it the first Christmas, mainly do all the work. But no, she's after it. And just as we got started, she had to go back to work. So it's been a little different, a little unorthodox, so to speak. But yeah, it's always fun when you have a house full of family.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, like, with most people, even the people that are very gung-ho and look forward to Christmas, unlike myself, I think that all those people eventually get to the point where it's almost like a sense of relief that everything's over. You know, the shopping is over, the sporadic planning and schedule changes are over, the cleaning that a lot of people do when they meet with family, when family comes over, and a lot of the chore work that goes into it. Ultimately, you're left with like a laundry list of things that you have to accomplish. And I think that there's just an overall little bit of a sense, kind of like a sigh of relief once that thing is over and everybody goes back to some semblance of normalcy coming up within the next week or so.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and that's funny you brought up the chores. It seems like the chore list gets heavier right before the holidays, like right before Christmas Day when everybody shows up. But then it duplicates itself again when everybody leaves because you have to, like, put your house back. Because you do all that work. You know, you do all that work before they show up. And then it's pristine. It's the best it is all year. And then there's a tornado of family that just, they don't understand. I think sometimes people don't understand all the work that goes into hosting, you know, family get-togethers, and then you have to do it all again so you put your life back.
Yeah, for sure. It's very, very hectic, and especially when you have a recently born child in your household and you have two people like your wife and yourself who are on call. And that's one thing that we've talked about before on the podcast too, is that everybody has to be respectful to one another and realize that we're all busy. Like, that was a conversation that has been playing at the gym lately with certain people talking about other people in their own lives that say, you know, everybody has a friend or a couple friends that say, oh, I'm too busy to go to the gym. And one thing that you and I have been pretty adamant about is everybody's busy. And I always try to never come across as like very self-righteous about how my situation's so much more busy than everybody else's, and I work so much more than everyone else, because everybody has like some sense of relativity with it, where it's almost like their perception of how busy they are supersedes how busy everybody else is.
Right.
So, like, especially during the holidays, I'm sure that gets exacerbated and kind of elevated for most people, that sense of how busy they are and how many things they have going on. So sometimes I feel like January and February are nice de-escalation periods, for lack of a better word, for people to kind of put things in perspective and slow down life a little bit. But then, of course, you have the people that are the opposite of that, because New Year's resolutions are coming up, and that's when people tend to have the most motivation, it seems like, for those sorts of things.
Absolutely. So I like that you brought up the New Year's resolutions thing. We had talked last week. Did you get a chance to go back and re-listen to our New Year's resolutions for last year?
You know what? I haven't. And that was something that I was going to bring up to you, is the possibility of doing one more episode before the new year, because I believe the New Year's Day, January 1st, is going to be on a Saturday, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So that would mean that we would have to possibly record Friday or before, to have the opportunity to do a reflective period before the new year, which I would like to do. Did you get a chance to re-listen to the New Year's episode from last year at all?
I have not. And I was going to say that was something I wanted to make an action item for this week to do, is to listen to it, reflect on it, and then see where I personally am at with my resolutions.
Yeah, perfect.
And because I'm almost certain, I can't remember 100% what mine were, but I'm almost certain I failed at most of them, to be completely honest.
Mhm.
But that's okay. Failure is fine as long as you recognize it and you actually hit it head forward,
Yeah,
So,
I remember vaguely what mine were. I don't remember too many of the measurable points about it, but I remember
right,
the items that I talked about. But I don't want to commit to saying that I did or didn't accomplish things unless I know verbatim what was said on my part. So that was something
right,
that Justin, you and I talked about last week. For people that didn't hear last week's episode, we said that prior to the new year, you and I wanted to go back and re-listen to our most recent New Year's episode where we talked about what our New Year's resolutions were going to be. And then right before the end of this year, being our next episode, talking about how we almost kind of like a rubric grading ourselves and how we performed, what went wrong, why it went wrong, and do almost like a very, very analytical and deep rooted self assessment of how our year was relative to the goals that we wanted to accomplish. Because,
right.
like you said, failure is okay in some instances as long as you learn from it and try not to replicate it. Like one saying that my dad always had whenever I would say sorry for something or apologize, he would always say, "Don't be sorry, just don't let it happen again." So I
Right,
think that
exactly.
can be transferred to the goals where, sorry, I didn't accomplish this or whatever. I didn't meet my mark that I wanted to. It's like, okay, well, just don't let it happen again. How are you going to plan differently? If you want to keep the same goal, what's going to be different the next time around?
Yeah, I like that. So let me ask you. You said you had mentioned something about recording another episode before the new year. Do you want to do like a bonus, like like you said, like a rubric, like a reflection episode on 2021, and
Sure.
then do our normal Saturday uh record on the new year?
Yeah, we can do that. I'm fine with whatever. I'm flexible.
All right.
I
Well,
would just
sounds like we
really,
got our work cut out.
regardless of what the progression of episodes is, I just want to make sure that we do a reflective art or a reflective episode, just because I think that that's really important to show true transparency. And I think that it's going to be a good exercise, at least for myself, to be able to see how authentic I was to what my goals originally were. And then
Right.
to be able to see if the goals were appropriate, not necessarily just appropriate in terms of did I accomplish them or not? Because you could say, oh, that was inappropriate. It was way too lofty because I didn't meet it. Or if you met a particular goal that was too easy, you could say it was inappropriate because I didn't challenge myself enough or whatever. But I also want to make sure that my goals are appropriate in terms of their importance. Because
Right.
like looking back, there was a period of time, I can't remember what months it was, but I kind of set a month or two goal where I wanted to be able to do a straddle split. And we talked about it on the podcast a few times I just set this random fitness goal because we were talking about short-term goal setting and I wanted to show people kind of undergo the process. And if I was to talk to people about short-term goal setting, I wanted to make sure that I had something specific and measurable in mind that I was doing on my end. So that way I could not only talk the talk, but walk the walk as well. And long story short,
Yeah.
I didn't meet my goal of doing a complete straddle split. I was close, it was very close, but I didn't quite get it in the allotted time. And the reason that I didn't get it was because slowly I stopped working towards it. So I was really, really adamant about my stretching and my mobility work when I first started it. And then a couple weeks went by and it just gradually tapered off to the point where I didn't do my mobility work and stretching nearly as much as I should have. And I didn't work specifically at that goal anymore. And
Right.
the rationale behind it was because it wasn't important to me at all. Like I didn't really care if I did a straddle split or not. It had no effect or outcome or impact on my training. It had no impact on my life. It was just not a very important goal to me in the slightest bit. So, in my life would not be any different and hasn't been any different because I didn't accomplish it. I just picked that goal because I thought, oh, this is something I could do and it might be kind of cool. Well, I think that's a really, really good talking point for people as they look towards their New Year's resolutions is make sure that things that you're setting, you have conviction in and are something that are really important to you. I know that seems silly because people may not, you would think, why would somebody make a New Year's resolution if it's not important to them? Make sure it's important to you to the point where you're not going to taper off away from it. Because I feel like
Well, yeah,
everybody
yeah,
makes
like
these goals and they do.
right, and like quote, like for me to quote, for a good person to quote here would be Dr. Ryan when he said, "Go all in."
Yes.
Make a resolution that's worth putting your wedding ring on, or signing your name on a document that you created that would hold you accountable for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if it's important enough for you to set a resolution to do it, then it needs to be something that's amazing. And
For
that,
sure.
I liked what you said there with the authenticity part of your goals. And I think I want to really look at my goal setting last year for for my resolutions, right? And see if they were authentic to the point of, I guess I'm trying to think about how I want to say this. Is I set those goals prior to being a father, right?
Hmm.
Excuse me, I got a cough. Goals prior to being a father, and I didn't have my priorities in line at the time. Like I thought I did, and then I don't think I think until you have a child, you don't recognize what is a priority until they're here and you realize that everything about them is a priority. So I would like to reflect on where my goal setting was. If I met the goal, if I failed the goal, but then also look into why did I fail the goal? Really, really dissect and look at it and see. Because if the failure was directly because I spent more time with my daughter, or, you know, rose to the occasion and became a better father because I didn't do this or didn't do that, is that really a failure? Or would that be considered a success because I set the wrong?
Yeah.
You know
I
what
think
I
that's
mean? Like
fair. That's
I
interesting.
don't, and I don't want that to come off as a cop out, because I know I failed my goals. I'm almost 100% sure, because I think I set the wrong goals. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So this year, now that I have almost a year under my belt as being a father, which is so weird to say, it still is strange. Excuse me, I got a head cold. Sorry. Um, that's another perk of being a father. You catch everything the daycare gives her.
Oh, of course.
Um, but interested to see where my goal setting lies for this year, because I think we're making this a trend, right? To do it every year at New Year's, which is cool, because we could possibly, right, break the mold as far as most not there's a percentage, but like a large percentage of New Year's resolutions don't even make it past March. So I think that's I mean, in my opinion, that's what we're kind of going for here, is to try to show that you can set goals that at New Year's that you hold to and follow through with.
Yeah. And I think that
So
an important discussion to maybe have and ruminate on would be, why do people taper off? Is it that they set the wrong goals? Because, like, when you say wrong goals, for example, let's just go with that. When you set the incorrect goals, maybe they weren't incorrect at the time, but then they deem themselves to be incorrect.
right, that's kind of what I meant. Like, is as far as no goal is correct, so to speak, but it might be the wrong timing, or it might not be the right priority.
I think
And
that it's, man, it's so hard because I want to go back and forth with different things like this. Like, I want to say, because like you said, and you even prefaced it and annotated that it's going to sound like a cop out when you say that, where you say, oh, well, I didn't accomplish my goals, but that's because I just may
this
have
is
set the
why,
wrong goals.
yeah.
And it almost seems hypocritical of us to a degree when we say things like that, because that's the point of goal setting, is to make sure that what's important to you now remains important to you throughout the entirety of the year, because I think that everybody could use that. Not that it's an excuse, but I think that everybody could say that. Everybody could say, well, my
Right.
goals were important to me at the time, and now they're not important to me anymore, which is exactly what we're going to try to avoid going into the next year, is making sure that we pick goals that are as equally important, or going to be as equally important to us in December as they were in January.
Right.
Which truthfully, I
And
don't know
that-
where I stand on that spectrum, because I haven't really even gone back and listened to it perfectly.
Right. I'm actually going to make it a point tonight to go ahead and listen to the episode to see where I'm at.
Yeah, it'll definitely be a pretty cool exercise for you and I to go back and show full transparency with that. And even if it's not for the listeners, I think even just for myself too, I think it's going to be a cool
Right.
strategy and allow me to set better goals and more effective goals going forward for the next year then.
Right. Because if I remember correctly, all my goals were like for me.
Mm-hmm.
And naturally so, especially for somebody who doesn't have a kid, doesn't have, I had, adult responsibilities. I have a wife, I had a job and a house to support, and I had physical fitness goals that I believe were in that, but I didn't have the responsibility aspect of being in charge of somebody's life.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be interesting to see how I interpret what I said last year, like basically this time last year, till now, a full year later, but with those additional responsibilities into my life.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see. And then also how I could use that and critique this year's goals to make the right choices, make them hard enough that they're not easily attainable, but also make them strategic enough that they are life-changing.
For sure.
Because like when you make a goal, honestly, wouldn't you agree that they need to be a life-changing goal? Like, if it doesn't change your life, is it really a goal, or is it just a mundane day-to-day activity?
I absolutely think so in the terms of a New Year's resolution. Like, obviously you can set goals for the week or for the day or for the month that aren't life-changing, but if you're going to set a New Year's resolution, because typically the time frame for that is almost always the year, right? Like when you set a New Year's resolution, it's for the entirety of the year. So I don't understand how you could go an entire year with a particular specific goal in mind and not have it be life-changing. If it isn't life-changing, then your priorities are probably very, very skewed, I would say.
Right. And I think that was my whole point, is to make sure that, like, from what I remember from last year to now, off the top of my head, my priorities were definitely skewed because I was not having an account of being a father, even though the caveat is I believe one of my things was to be the best father I could be.
Yeah.
But things, I don't think I was adding that goal in with those goals. You know what I mean? Like that resolution and the other ones, I don't think I was thinking the road would run together, and realistically they took 3 different directions.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, we'll definitely be doing that. We'll take a very, very deep and note-taking listen for on that episode and kind of reflect and go over it in full transparency next time we record. But for now, let's go to a quick commercial break and we'll get into a few training updates when we come back. As listeners of the Chasing Dreams podcast, we know that you demand the highest quality at all times. If you're interested in quality, look no further than Beast Mode Baking. Beast Mode Baking aims to bring the highest quality, creative, and of course delicious baked goods to your home with nationwide shipping. All orders need to be pre-ordered to ensure they're packed fresh and shipped out to you as soon as possible. Beast Mode Baking offers a flat rate of $15 for shipping due to the size and weight of the cookies and doughs. So if you're interested in Beast Mode Baking, please contact CEO Shannon Knorr. That's at SKNORR13 on Instagram, and order your delicious baked goods today, because every time you support them, you're supporting the podcast as well. And we are back from our commercial break. All right, Justin, prior to the break, we talked about our upcoming New Year's resolution episode that we're going to listen into, and that's going to be a really, really good time. But we also talked about doing some brief training updates before we close up shop for the Christmas evening. On my end, we talked last time. I mentioned to everybody how I was getting back into what I would call, quote, bodybuilding mode, which is very, very different in terms of how I approach my training and nutrition. The biggest one being that it requires me to be selfish. Um, I don't think it's going to affect other people at all, because I feel like if I was bodybuilding and it was affecting my loved ones and my family and my friends, then I probably wouldn't do it. But it requires me to be selfish with my own choices. So, I can't, it, I don't know. I just want to say that it's kind of hard to explain, but it just requires me to be a little bit, have less margin for error on my part,
Right.
which I think that that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm still, again, I mentioned this last week, I'm still kind of riding that wave of the honeymoon phase of getting back into everything full swing and taking progress pictures and tracking my weight and tracking my nutrition and making sure that everything's very, very regimented, routine, and measured. So everything's going fantastic on my end. And it's amazing too how quickly changes happen when you're truly, truly on with everything. So you're trying to, even little things like trying to better prioritize my sleep, which isn't a little thing, but for me, that's something that I've neglected for the past, probably the past year, in favor of working. Unfortunately, I've been working so much that haven't had optimal sleep. So that's something that I've been trying to prioritize lately. And yeah, I'm just really upregulating everything and kind of feeling a little bit better, feeling a little bit stronger, feeling a little bit bigger. And it's all the wheels are starting to turn. And I'm starting to head downhill in terms of momentum. So
Yeah, I never used to like that. The spin on downhill is a bad thing.
yeah,
Because downhill to me is you're rolling at a full head of steam.
yeah,
Time to
which is
go.
exactly what I was implying there. I'm glad that you
Yeah,
understood that. I didn't want to say downhill as in things are going negatively by any means.
yeah. The struggle is the uphill climb.
Yes, for sure.
But training for me has been amazing. This week has been terrible for consistency purposes, just because my work schedule this week was insane, and I actually pulled I'd say almost 36-hour shift in between 2 days, so with very little sleep, which caused me to miss two workouts. But the fact that you are bodybuilding again is benefiting my training greatly. So yeah, the training has been amazing, and back in the gym still, which is something I said I didn't want to do again, but I realized that I needed it.
Yeah, and I think that for me, and I used this phrase earlier, just a few moments ago, but I think that for me, what it boils down to is having less margin for error with things. And I think that the commonality that you and I have is training together. So
Yes.
when we live together, my limited margin for error kind of has a direct impact on you. So whatever my workout is like, it's going to be your workout. And likewise with yourself. However,
Right.
you pace through the workout and however you conduct yourself during your workout is going to affect me. So
Right. And that
go ahead.
yeah. I was gonna say, and that's something that I think about every time that I walk through the doors is you have, like, I talk to that mental conversation with myself. You have to be on your A game, because you're not the only one that's benefiting from this workout.
Yeah, for
Like,
sure. I like that.
If I'm a slack jaw at the workout, then Chad's not getting somebody to scream in his ear, or Charlie's not getting somebody to scream at him to get that extra rep. And I know some people are like not a big fan of our training style. Some people don't like that. This is such a derogatory term, but that meathead approach.
No doubt.
But the three of us for sure benefit greatly from it. Like, we like that. We like the screaming at each other, and giving each other the no excuse, the no way out. Like, You set a goal to get to it. You got to do it. It's time to go.
When I think that the one way that I've already always explained it to people, and when you talk about being selfish, is I've always told people that if someone has a bad workout, like, and Justin, I'll use you as an example only because of, and now obviously there are mental ramifications that unfortunately stem from having a bad workout where you get impacted mentally, which is not good. But if someone who doesn't compete like yourself has a bad workout, then the mentality can always be, all right, well, we'll just get it next time. Or if you have two bad workouts, or even like this week, this is a perfect example, like how you've been sick and
Yeah.
haven't been able to get to the gym because a combination of work, illness, and personal responsibilities. So that can happen, and there's no long-term impact, or even really a short-term impact for that matter, because you're going to get back on the gym Monday and it's going to be resume business as usual. Whereas
Right.
I try to let people understand is when you compete, that is valuable time that you will never ever get back. Once you have a set show, the time that ticked away, you can't postpone that show another week.
Right.
That show is going to happen when it's going to happen, whether you wasted a week or not. And then you have to consider, did everybody else that you're going to compete against waste a week? And what are you going to be able to do to make up that time? And realistically, you may not ever be able to make up that time, because bodybuilding and training isn't one of those things that you can just do more and make up for it. So, oh, if I missed an hour at the gym today, I can go 2 hours tomorrow, because it doesn't work like that. It's not a perfect equation or a perfect algorithm that computes immediately and strictly to time spent. So I try to tell people that when it comes to being selfish in a training setting, just have common courtesy with my workouts to understand that if I don't have the best workouts leading up to a show, I'm going to get embarrassed on stage. Like you,
Right.
and I don't mean you as in you personally, but you as in the proverbial pronoun for anybody. So you don't have that same type of pressure. You don't have that small of a margin for error where if you have a bad workout, people are going to notice. For me, come stage time, whenever I decide to step on stage, everybody's going to know if I did my homework or not. And
Right.
a couple bad workouts or a couple poor nutritional choices can be the difference between first and second, or first and third, or second and third, or whatever. So
Yeah.
it almost requires you to have a small margin for error. And then because of that small margin for error requires a very, very selfish approach. And sometimes it can come across as conceited, and sometimes it can come across as something your friends won't understand. But if they're truly your friends and have been around you long enough, they'll start to understand it, and then they'll encourage it. Like people in my life when I first started bodybuilding are completely they're very receptive to it now, but they were a little bit resistant in the beginning and didn't understand it. Whereas now they understand it because they've been immersed in it for so long, and they just know that that's how things operate.
Right. Right. People, and I hate to quote TikTok, but like the TikTok videos where they understand the assignment, them videos, people tend to start to understand the assignment when it comes to being around you when you're in prep, or around me whenever I'm training for a triathlon, or somebody that is doing something that is selfish for themselves. People that care enough will start to understand the assignment.
Yeah.
They'll understand that I'm not going to eat the cookies. I'm not going to order a normal menu item when we go out to eat. I'm going to make the waiter's life crazy because I'm going to ask for crazy things. And they just people start to recognize that, and they stop even asking you to go to places that you don't want to eat. You can't eat. Not that you don't want to, but you set your goal as, I can't eat that, so I have to go to these places or eat out of my lunchbox.
Well, and this is a really cool example of that, of like the selfish approach that comes across as selfish, but that's just something that has to happen if you want to be good at something. So our
Right.
training partner, Chad, who was a former athlete that I coached early on in my coaching career, and then has now kind of grown into a friend of mine and a training partner. So Chad, another kid, I call him a kid because they're still in their early 20s, another kid who I had coached in the past, and I'm very good friends with his family, happens to be Chad's best friend. And he texted Chad the other day and said, hey, would I be able to lift with you and Charlie in the mornings? Would you guys mind if I joined you? And it was awesome to hear secondhand the interaction that happened between them, because Chad told him no. And usually, so you think if two people are best friends and the one asks the other person, hey, can I lift with you? And the other person tells him no, you would say, well, what a jerk. Why would he do that? I don't understand that. How could he be rude to his best friend like that? But Chad's rationale was exactly that, of one that needed to be selfish. He said, listen, I take my training very, very seriously. You have lifted with me on and off for probably 3 different instances where you said you were real dedicated. I spent a lot of time helping you with your nutrition. I spent a lot of time helping you with your supplements, and I slowed down my workout pace to accommodate you. And all of a sudden you would quit after a couple months. And then a couple months later, you'd come back and want to join the ship again. And I would get you on board and do the same things that I did the first time. And then you'd quit again. And he told him straight up, Chad did, he said, listen, you've jumped ship far too many times that all you're going to do is slow me down. I'm heading in a direction, got a lot of steam and momentum heading somewhere I want to head with my new training, my nutrition. And Chad is ultimately going to step on stage in the near future. And then he threw me out there and said, Charlie's getting ready for a show as well in the future. And we don't feel that you would bring any benefit to the group in terms of training. In fact, you would impact it negatively. We have to both go to work after we're done training. So we're kind of crunched for time and we can't waste any time. And we feel that our workouts would just slow down to accommodate you. And we just don't think we're in a good place to do that. And so therefore you're going to have to find somebody else to lift with. And I'm sorry, you're still one of my best friends, but that's just where we're at right now. And I thought that that was really cool how you can have that conversation with someone, because you and I have talked about that on other episodes, not just with instances of selfishness that need to be happened, but the how much better our society would be if people could have conversations with other people without everyone taking everything so personally. Like,
yeah,
hey,
if you could be open and honest and somebody not get butthurt.
yes, that's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
But I just don't think we're there yet as a society.
I don't think, and honestly, unfortunately, I don't think we'll ever get there in society at the course that this is our society's taking. I just don't know that it'll ever happen because everybody's so afraid of somebody's feelings, and it's like all you're doing is hurting their feelings by lying to them or sugarcoating things.
Yeah. So really, the only way you can fix that is just choose, because we say, oh, that can't happen in today's society. Okay, well, who is your society? The society that you expose yourself to. Yeah, the society is that you have is only what you expose yourself to. So maybe you just need to shorten your circle and surround yourself with people that can handle criticism, that can have those conversations, that are able to look at things objectively and not take everything so personally, and just understand that situations are what they are.
And that's one of the reasons why I beat myself up so bad this week, because even though I know I didn't affect your guys' workouts, you and Chad, but you guys have allowed me to join your party, and then I couldn't make it 3 times. Mm-hmm. And I know you understand, but I also know that I need to understand the assignment too. Like, I have to rise to the occasion, because your guys' training intensity and level of commitment is where I see myself at 99% of the time. Mm-hmm. It's that 1% where I have an incident at work where I'm stuck and I just can't make it. Like, it's a physically can't do thing. Like, I'm in a professional situation where sometimes you just can't do it. Like, it is what it is. But I guess it's kind of like an honor for me, because you guys do allow me to train with you. That like validates to myself, like, that my intensity is right where I want it to be.
Yeah.
It's focus driven, and when I'm there, it's time to go. It's work time.
And I think that, when you talk about like the validation, I think that it's sufficient to say that we probably wouldn't, well, I shouldn't say probably, we wouldn't ask you or accept your extended offer to come and join if you weren't of that caliber, because the number of people that have asked to lift with me versus the number of people that I actually allow to lift with me is extremely, extremely skewed.
Right.
So, and that's just the reality of what it is. And I'm always someone who offers advice, but I think that like I'm at the point in my life too right now, and we'll talk about this more on next episode when we talk about New Year's resolutions, because I already have several things kind of rummaging around in my head that I've been searching through and sifting through when I'm trying to come up with what I'm going to say on the next episode. But one of those things that I'm potentially looking forward to in the next year is just making sure that I don't compromise what I need to get done for other people.
Right.
And I can say that without sounding selfish, because most of what I do, aside from my training window and my meals, are for other people. Like, so I'm not going to allow anybody else compromise my ability to teach my students, or compromise my ability to train my athletes, or compromise my ability to network with my online clients. All three of those things are solely impacting other people. Those have nothing to do with me. So it's not just impacting my personal goals, but impacting my job. I can't allow other people to negatively impact those things.
Right. Exactly.
And it seems like the older I get and the more emphasis I place on these things, the more I realize that it all goes back to time. And that really the only thing that someone can spoil that's in your possession is time.
Right.
And so if you hold that sacred and you don't allow people to waste your time or to mismanage your time, and you stay true to yourself with your own time management, then I don't see why you can't accomplish the goals that you set out, especially if you're an intelligent person, and kind of structure your goals in an achievable manner, which again, when we talk about. All right, everybody. So I apologize for the abrupt ending that you just experienced in this episode. Justin and I are actually recording via Zoom because both of us are spending time with our respective families, considering it's Christmas. And lo and behold, for some reason, we both got disconnected. Not sure if it was your place, Justin, or my place, but for some reason, we both found ourselves as the only participant in the meeting, and everything went awry. So I guess we should just close up shop and start to end the episode here, huh?
Sounds like a plan. Yeah, that was strange.
But you got to love technology. And at this juncture, we can't really condemn it, considering technology is what is allowing us to record right now.
Absolutely.
All right. So with that, we have come to the end of another episode of the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin. This has been episode 110. We appreciate your listenership, and we look forward to hearing back from you guys next week. Unbreakable, unstoppable.